Welcome to the Skinny Jungle Roar Bengals postgame pod for September 15th. We are certainly high atop the GEHA field at Arrowhead Stadium press box. I'm actually in one coach's box, the Kansas City Chiefs coach's box. Skinny is next door, believe it or not. And we are here to break down what was, as Skinny asked Zach Taylor immediately after the game, a gut punch of a loss, 26-25, last second field goal, 51 yards by Harrison Butker. Really, Skinny, you asked the question right after the game, and I will ask your impression on what you thought of Zach Taylor's comments in terms of losing this game, but the fight the Bengals showed.
Yeah, and I think they did, Mike. And I think, again, every loss stinks, right? Because you get 17 chances, and the number of wins and losses determines whether or not you make the playoffs. And here you are again in an 0-2 hole. And you played lots of spurts of this game well enough to win on both sides of the football. Evan McPherson did miss an extra point, but he also kicked 4 field goals. So you could even maybe chime a little special teams into that mix as well. And yet you still found a way to lose. And I think that was the gut punch portion of me. You know, this team's been through this before. It's bounced back. The thing that's concerning moving forward continues to be health. Now the health of the interior defensive line especially. But I did think that I think they sorted and figured some things out. Like, there's no T. Higgins, and we don't really have a dynamic second option. Andre Yoshivasha is a nice player, and he had a couple TDs today, and I thought he filled in well, and he did hit a home run ball to Jermaine Burton, but you don't have a viable, consistent second option. So they decided to lean into the tight ends, and the tight ends I thought really came through for them, and maybe that's something more that they can hang their hat on moving forward, because if Jamar Chase is the only weapon out there, and you hope T. Higgins is back sooner rather than later to add the second big-time weapon. But if he is, defenses are just going to scheme against that, so you better lean somewhere else. And in the opener, the wide receivers didn't get it done. 5 catches for 37 yards. Today, I thought they did a good job to lean into the tight ends. But, Mike, I think this team, and I think you see it right now because of injuries, personnel, whatever other reasons there are, at this moment, I'm not telling you this is the whole season, but at this moment, the margin for error is so slim. And it allows you to lose to an inferior opponent like they did against New England because of a fumble going in the end zone, a botched punt that leads to 3, and then today a couple of costly penalties and maybe not finishing out a couple of drives with touchdowns rather than field goals.
All right. I think, aside from creating the 3 turnovers against the best quarterback in football that you did, intercepting him twice and forcing a fumble. Zach Taylor said last week he wanted to get into the business of turning the ball over of the opponent and winning the turnover battle. The Bengals did that today, 3-1, even though the one for Kansas City was a 38-yard scoop and score off a Burrow fumble. All of that being said, I think the number one positive to come from this game was the way Joe Burrow looked. It looked like Joe Burrow was Joe Burrow back in the pocket, dissecting the defense. There was, I believe it was a 19 to 22-yard out pattern he threw to Eric All. That was a thing of beauty for a first down. To me, passes like that show me that Joe Burrow is back.
I thought the deep ball to Jermaine Burton was a good ball. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't laid totally out there for Jermaine to just run under it and score a touchdown. And Jermaine had separation, but he also didn't have enough separation to where he caught it and could then race past the guy to the end zone.
Right.
But I thought that was a good throw too, and that obviously was a huge question coming out of last week. So yeah, I mean, from week 1 to wondering, man, is this all this is and dink and dunk, and that's all he can do, to week 2 and watching him rip some throws and spread the ball around and make the tough throws that good quarterbacks have to make. I think that was a positive step as well.
Burrow, 23 of 36 here on Sunday, 258 yards. He was sacked 3 times for a loss of 12 yards, but he threw the 2 touchdowns and he was an interception. A quarterback rating north of 100 at 103.7. And I was not in there for Joe Burrow. I was working the locker room, but you were in for Joe Burrow. And what did he have to say? And what was his mood? Because in the locker room, there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of disappointment, but there was this sense of, okay, we kind of got our bearings a little bit more. I'm curious to hear what Joe Burrow had to say about that and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I thought he talked about the team putting up a good fight, and I think he even said that was a positive. But I'm not sure I've seen him as despondent after a loss as this one, Mike. And I'm trying. I don't want to play amateur psychologist, but it makes me wonder if he understands that the margin for error is so small. And wins like today are ones that are hard to come by, and we should have come by it, and we didn't come by it. And that just puts us further behind of trying to dig out of another hole. And to some degree, maybe he looks and goes, that it felt so easy maybe to get to that Super Bowl the first time, and without with all the guys coming back, we're gonna get there again.
Right.
And then it starts to sink in of, man, it's really hard to do that. And if things aren't going perfectly well for us, we're in some trouble, and we got some injuries. His mood was one of, I thought, despondency. At the same time, though, the upbeat part of we played better, not good enough, those kind of things. But the guys fought against a good team. We always have a good fight against this team, the Chiefs. I thought there were parts good and bad to his mode. But again, I just have never seen him as despondent after a loss, to be honest with you.
Mike Petralia Trags here, host of the Code Reds and Jungle Board podcasts on CLNS Media. I want to tell you about Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss the deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as few as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. I think it's starting to weigh on him a little bit, and I think we need to get to the whole Jamar Chase thing. Do we have a Jamar Chase problem? And, we kind of poo-pooed it in training camp when he didn't practice. He didn't play in the preseason, obviously, and Jamar was just playing the game, the contract game, and we kind of assumed that this would come to a head and the Bengals would get the deal done with Jamar. I think a lot of people mistakenly, including myself, were under that impression, under that assumption. And that's not the way it's played out. And Jamar is you can tell Jamar is ticked off. He's playing angry. He's not getting open as much with T. Higgins starting the season injured. And then today, late in the fourth quarter, as the Bengals are driving down the field trailing 23-22, there's a situation where a ball gets thrown to him, a completion, and Trent McDuffie brings him to the ground. Now, what I initially thought watching it live is, he grabbed his face mask and he's getting all upset. Come to find out, I think he was more upset after the reports of the Adam Schefter $50 million insurance policy, if that is true. He doesn't want to get hurt. And was that a hip drop tackle?
Yeah, so I ended up not writing a column about that. I'm writing a column about, kind of the overall feel after this game, but I did write a news story around that, and we had our own our PFW. You guys have changed the vice presidency role, but Ben Baby did the pool report with the referee Alex Kemp. And so let's unpack that, because I think that's to your initial
unpack there.
Yeah, to your initial question of do we have a Jamar Chase problem? I think we do and we don't. But let's stem from this. So he actually, Alex Kemp said, he came up thinking it was a hip drop tackle. We told him it wasn't. At that point, his language got over the top. We're not going to stand for that. Hence came the flag. And I think that was the culmination of all of his frustration of, I don't want to get hurt and cost myself big time money. And I can get hurt with a hip drop tackle. And the league has told us, we're trying to put an emphasis on the hip drop tackle. I don't know if it was or wasn't. The officials didn't see it as such. Maybe we'll find out in a couple of days. The league will say, yeah, man, that was probably a hip drop tackle. I don't know that for a fact. But I think that was the culmination of everything of A, he thought it was a hip drop. B, that hip drop could have hurt me and could have maybe ended my career. It's good, or could have at least cost me some money. I'm being double covered and clouded on almost every play, and so I'm not getting the run I normally get. And the contract situation still has to weigh on him and be frustrating, no matter what he says or anyone else says. And I just thought that was a culmination of all of that in one fell swoop.
And the fact that Jamar didn't want to address it after the game,
right?
And I think that's strategic, because I don't think he wants to get fined anymore. I don't think he wants to come off having it sound like he's talking about himself, where a play like that kind of comes off as looking selfish, costing the team 15 yards in a critical situation.
It was critical, Mike. It turned to 3rd and 7, which it wasn't an automatic they were going to make the 3rd and 7, but they had a 3rd and 7 on the 30, already obviously in field goal range at that point, and you got a 3rd and 7 to try to continue the drive. You continue that drive with a touchdown. Guess what Kansas City would have had to do at the end of the game instead of kick a field goal? Now, they would have played with different tempo, different pace, all of those things. I fully will give you that part of it. They were playing for a field goal, but they would have had to go ahead and go score a touchdown. And so it is a selfish penalty to a large degree, because then it becomes 3rd and 22 at the 45. Bengals have to just make a play to get it back to field goal range, which they did, and McPherson kicks the long field goal to give them the lead. But again, to the point of it where I do think it's a completely selfish thing, I think it was the culmination of all the frustration of, dude almost hurt me. If I get hurt, it's going to cost me. And I'm playing on this $1 million salary this year. He got a roster bonus, but that's literally what his salary is for this year. And I don't want to risk I just thought it was the culmination of all of that, because apparently, players get away with a lot of language with referees, right? They know it's just it's the emotions of the sport. But the way Alex Kemp made it sound was this was just so far over the top, he had no choice but to penalize him.
And you know what? In reading some of the comments online, the reaction from fans, which is, part of our business, we understand fans get very emotional after a game like this. They're upset, many of them, that Jamar didn't apologize for costing the team 15 yards and saying, hey, look, I can't cost the team yardage there, and I can't cost the team 4 points, let's say. We got the field goal, but could have had the touchdown.
Mike, another, and it goes back to last week's game, because it really got kind of underreported because it really wasn't a storyline of the game and it didn't affect it. But the play where Jamar walks off the field as there's a punt getting ready to take place, and that cost them something in that case, and who knows what. Again, it didn't affect the direct outcome of the game, but it was a penalty on him because he chose, instead of to hustle off the field, to just walk off the field. That's a problem.
Well, and when he was asked about it after the game, he said, well, you just answered your own question. I didn't get off the field. Instead of saying, I can't do that, I got to hustle off the field there. There's something really, really bothering Jamar Chase. And normally in years past, I'd say, great, that's an edge. I even said it on Thursday when Jamar came out and said, we are still the team to beat. And that message, fans need to understand this, that was not directed toward the Kansas City Chiefs. That was directed to the rest of the Cincinnati Bengals in the locker room and the receiver room.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was more of trying to spark some confidence if there wasn't confidence there. Listen, I'm not a big talk trash guy. I never have been, and I'm certainly too old for it today. I thought Zach Taylor answered the question with us on Friday when we talked to him and I think his was more directed at Cam Taylor-Britt of, I don't mind guys being confident and put hard work in all that. I just don't want it directed at another player, which Cam's was. It was directed at Xavier Worthy. Jamar's was not. It was just a general comment that we still think we're the best team in the AFC. Well, fine. I got no problem with that. I think it doesn't, I don't know if it needs to be said, but in fact it was. That's fine if you believe that and it makes your teammates want to believe that and helps you guys, because that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what any of us think or what fans think of that. If it helps you play with an edge and play better and play with whatever more passion, more energy, however you want to phrase it, then I'm fine with that. But today you can't get that penalty, man. You just can't. I don't care how mad you are, how much you thought it was a hip drop. The official told you it's not a hip drop. You just have to walk away. And you could tell Burrow tried to de-escalate. He even said, I tried to de-escalate that. And when he got there, about the split second he got there is when the flag went up. So Joe couldn't get there fast enough to de-escalate it.
Do you think Joe Burrow needs to have a heart-to-heart with his buddy Jamar?
I don't think it would hurt. Somebody does, because again, there is a part of me that I've told you this, I've written the column about it, but I see both sides of this contract situation, but when you get what he thought was hip drop tackled, and I don't think it would be catastrophic from a career ending, but it could be a season ending. And then that maybe costs you money in negotiations, right? And yeah, if it's true that he took out an insurance policy, it's a very wise decision to do. I would think a $50 million insurance policy would give you some level of peace of mind. It maybe not as much as $100 million guaranteed, double that. And, right. And the fact that you can still play on that. But I think he's very, very frustrated at the moment, and somebody needs to just calm him down a little bit.
What did you think of the game Trey Hendrickson had? He had the 2 sacks. I believe he had 3 tackles for losses.
Holding penalty or illegal hands in the face against him as well.
Yep, he had an illegal hands to the face late in that, I believe, on that last drive before the 4th down.
Yes, yeah, it was.
And I thought Trey Hendrickson had one of his best games as a Had the Bengals won that game, he's had a lot of great games in a Bengal uniform. That would be in the top 3, certainly.
Yeah, he was really unblockable. They had to change tackles out. I was surprised they didn't give as much help over there on him. And I think some of today, while I do credit the secondary, I thought the secondary did a really nice job overall. Obviously, Cam Taylor-Britt got a beat on the deep ball to Rashee Rice, but that happens in this league. But I think some of the coverage, if you will, by the secondary was because Pat Mahomes didn't have a lot of time to scan the field. Now, he certainly bought some time with his scrambling ability, but even as elusive as he is, to your point, I mean, Trey got 2 sacks and forced a 10-yard penalty. That's a pretty good day's work.
What did you think of the last play? We have to get to this now.
Yep.
Daijahn Anthony clearly got to Rashee Rice early. I don't think there's any question of that. Was he allowed to play the ball? Well, yes, but you can't go right through the receiver to play the ball. I don't really have a big problem with that.
Yeah,
the problem I have is what happened behind the play, Skinny. Replay clearly shows at least 2 Bengals being tackled as Patrick Mahomes was scrambling to throw the ball downfield on 4th and 16 from his 35.
Yeah, and officials feel like it feels like they don't throw that flag. I don't know why. I don't know if it's we're going to 4th down. We're going to let the it's like the NBA thing, right? Or college basketball. Right. We're going to let the players decide this unless it's so egregious that we have to throw.
Egregious to me.
You know what I'm saying, though. I think that's where they stand. We'll let the players decide this, and then you could also argue if that's the case, then was Daijahn Anthony's contact enough to be a penalty? I thought it was. I think to your point, you thought it was. He came through the receiver. I think the big question is this, and I know maybe there weren't a ton of other options. Kid played 3 snaps in the game, 2 other snaps than this. So he obviously wasn't much in the defensive game plan. I thought he would have been. I thought they may use him a little bit as a Travis Kelce guy and see what that looked like, and they didn't. But in the most critical time of the game, you're putting a rookie 7th-round pick on the field on that play. Are you really?
Mike Petralia Trags here, host of the Jungle Roar and Code Reds podcasts on CLNS Media. Well, there is nothing quite like the thrill and excitement of taking in a football game live and in person. Some of my favorite memories when I was growing up was when my dad would take me to a Miami of Ohio game at Miami Field or a UC game at Nippert Stadium. Well, now there's a great app that helps you get the best tickets at the best prices. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. They have lots of great features. Curated deals make it easier to find the best prices on great seats. They have something called the Super Deal. They have seat views before you buy and lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection, all great features that make the Game Time app very, very unique. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Trags, Mike Petralia here, host of the Jungle Roar podcast on CLNS Media. Well, there's no doubt about it. We've had our fair share of hot, humid, hazy days this summer. And the last thing I want to do on a hot, humid day is worrying about preparing a meal. Well, There's an answer for that. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Head over to factormeals.com/Bengals50 and use code Bengals50. That's BENGALS50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off next month. That's code Bengals50 at factormeals.com/Bengals50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are going to have to, ask Lou Anarumo that this week when he meets with reporters, what his thinking was in that particular situation. Maybe he just thought that Daijahn brings more speed than, let's say,
he
Jordan
does.
Battle.
I think he does. I think he's a great athlete. And listen, I did a story on him back in OTAs because I find his story, fascinating. His journey to the NFL from small college walk on to little used Division I, player to all of a sudden starting an SEC school in Ole Miss. It's a fascinating story, and it's a great story of the things he's overcome to make a team and make the NFL. And I do think there's a lot of upside with him. I think we saw it in camp. But Mike, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll agree with this. You also saw a lot of reckless plays from Daijahn Anthony in camp, right? Yes. I mean, there were moments like this one where he just gets reckless at times. And some of that, I think, is what's got him to where he is to making a team, as you see him make plays and you think, all right, we can coach some of this out of him. And I think they can. But in the most critical moment of this game, you're gonna have him try to make that play, knowing how reckless he can be, and it ends up being a reckless play. I get he was trying to make a play on the ball.
It was reckless. I mean, it almost looked as if, okay, here comes the ball. I'm doing whatever I need to do, even if I go right through the receiver to get the ball. And I'm like, that's not the way you play that play.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, and it's unfortunate. He was not made available to us after the game. He was despondent, and I feel for guys in that situation. Yeah,
I get that.
I don't have a problem with that either. But somebody needs to answer for that play.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the offensive side of the ball here, Skinny, and ask you a question as to why Charlie Jones didn't get targeted in this game. Are you at all surprised by that?
I just think it's Charlie still is having a hard time understanding the nuance of what it means to play in the slot when he plays in the slot. I think that was a big, point of emphasis last year, that he just didn't quite have the nuance that a Tyler Boyd did. And then the injury set him back a little bit too. I do wonder, unfortunately, because there's opportunity there for all those young receivers, and even Trent Irwin, who's not a young receiver, he's been around the league. There's opportunities for those guys because not only are you trying to fill the Tyler Boyd spot, you're trying to fill the first 2 games the T. Higgins spot. And I go back to, I think Andre Yoshavash is a serviceable player. I think, he does some really good things really well. I think he is just a really good red zone target for whatever reason, and he understands the nuance, like the touchdown, not the one at the pylon. Funny part was he made a great athletic play at the pylon, and then he made kind of a reverse pivot on the second touchdown on the 4th down play to break into the open area and Joe Burrow find him, and Joe Burrow trusts him. But again, even when you look at Yoshi, the numbers aren't huge for what he did. I mean, he went for
only 2 catches,
for 7 yards. Yeah, and that was it. And it was a big tight end day, which I liked, and I'm sure we're going to get to in a second. But I think it shows you that right now, they ran Jermaine Burton out there for a few plays, put him on some 9 routes because it seems like that's probably all he understands what to do right now. But he did hit a home run, and maybe moving forward, you pick your spots with him more. But I do think they need to find a way to get something more out of Charlie Jones. I'm not here to tell you that this is on the coaching staff that he wasn't targeted, nor Joe Burrow. Tells me that Charlie Jones can't get on the field because they don't trust him and he doesn't get open enough.
All right. You mentioned the tight ends. We had marked down here Mike Gesicki, 7 catches, 9 targets, 91 yards. The targets, the receptions, and the yardage, all team highs in this game. So Mike Gesicki does have a breakout game for the Bengals here on Sunday afternoon. He had a terrific catch, I believe it was, on 4th down, where he flared open into the right flat, and Burrow found him, and it was a 36-yard gain, I believe, down to the
37, but yeah, down to the 6-yard line. Yeah,
down to the 6. Thank you. But that was a 4th down conversion. Eric All, who I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of watching play every week, and I think the Bengals coaching staff is as well.
Yep.
He caught all 4 passes that were targeted to him, 32 yards, including maybe Burrow's second best throw of the day. And I think we talked about this earlier, where he threw a 19-yard out.
Yeah, you mentioned that throw, but I'm glad you brought this up because I thought it was a nice soft-handed catch too, because he kind of extended his hands as he was going to the sideline, and he looked very natural, like a wide receiver catching that ball. And Mike, I do wonder this, even when T comes back, because again, I'm not sure there's a clear-cut number 3 receiver right now, and I lump Yoshi into that. I think he's more rotational piece who's having to play by default. I know they don't want to do this, although they did it more today. I mean, maybe you have to go to more 12 personnel, play 2 tight ends, whether it's, All's kind of an all-around guy, for lack of a better term. He's probably the best 3-down tight end they've got. Gesicki is obviously a terrific receiver, and I think you saw him more in that role today. Drew Sample has his niche. He had a couple of nice check down plays. I think he ended up with 3 catches in the first half today. Maybe you do lean into that tight end room more. Maybe that does help your offensive
You know why
role.
I think you do, Skinny? This team has to win at the line of scrimmage.
Yes. And that adds that mix. That adds to that mix, right? Adding another big body in the lineup.
By the way, the third tight end that I did not mention, Drew Sample had 3 catches on 3 targets for 28 yards. But fans are going to remember, and I know some of us in the press box noted that one pass that Mike Gesicki dropped. And I thought initially it was in the sun. It was right here.
Yeah.
It was a perfect pass from Burrow.
Yep.
You can be 7 of 9, but on the critical catches you need to make those critical catches. And Gesicki didn't make that one.
No question. But I do think today was a good step in the right direction to at least see them say, you know what, we just don't have the guys at wide receiver right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, not to say that maybe somebody evolves and you get T back, and that certainly helps. But I just don't think they have that, and I think they're starting to go, all right, we do have a bunch of tight ends we like. Let's start throwing the ball to them more.
One reason a lot of Bengals fans and the coaches, for that matter, love Cam Taylor-Britt is he has the memory of a gnat.
He does.
He gave up the touchdown, the 44-yarder to Rashee Rice. He got beat and got beat down the sideline. His fundamentals, his mechanics were off. He acknowledged that to us after the game in front of his locker. He learned from that. And he said, you can have a short memory and have no memory, but you need to learn from mistakes. So on the play in the third quarter, he makes one of the most spectacular interceptions you will see a Bengal player make. One-handed back to Xavier Worthy, who we can get into that a little bit, touch on it in your answer. But we know he said, I'm going to body him up because that's what you need to do to him. He's got one skill, and I'm not going to let him do that. Paraphrasing. But he made the one-handed interception. It was the same route Cam Taylor-Britt told us after the same route, and he learned from it and made the interception. Yeah,
different player, obviously, Rashee Rice, but Xavier Worthy is technically straight line faster, ran the 4.21 at the combine. He backed up his words. I mean, I'm sure Chiefs fans were probably laughing out loud when Rashee Rice beat him for the touchdown. And again, they probably deserve in that moment to go, see, big mouth, we got you. And they did. And he also talked about the pass Mahomes threw, where it's like, you just don't know if he's going to throw that, but then you learn that, he is going to let that thing fly. And it was honestly, when the ball was initially thrown, I did see Rashee Rice had a little separation, but I thought Cam was catching up. And when he reached up, I couldn't tell initially. I thought he caught it himself for an interception. Then all of a sudden you say Rashee Rice is going in the end zone. That was just a beautiful throw. But to your point, Cam's really honest and admitted that, you're right. I didn't do my technique right. He got by me. Guy makes a great throw. But the one against Worthy, he was in phase. He had Worthy blanketed. He was running stride for stride, and then to make the spectacular catch. And based on what he said about Xavier Worthy, he didn't say it about the other guys. He said it about Worthy. Kid had 2 catches for 17 yards. So he did what he said he was going to do.
He did. And I just think, yes, Daijahn Anthony had that moment he'd like to forget, cost the Bengals the game, sort of kind of like what happened with Joseph Osai here on the same field in the 22 championship, but not really. I mean, that was a personal foul. This was just a penalty that he committed in the open field, and it led to still a game-winning Harrison Butker field goal. But I think the Bengals did show us something here on Sunday, and it did have the vibes to me of Dallas 2 years ago. They lose on the last play of the game, a field goal at that point, and they lose in Dallas 20-17 after they had come back. I think from being 14 down or
14 nothing. No,
down.
I think it's 14 nothing down. Yeah, might have been 17-3 as well, but it was definitely 14 nothing. I remember.
And they showed character in that game. I think they showed character here today, Skinny.
Yeah, and I think, again, the other part to it, and I think it mixed and matched with the pass rush, but, last week it's Jacoby Brissett and pedestrian receivers, and they didn't do much, and you weren't expecting them to do much, so how much can you see what the secondary of the Bengals did today? I mean, Pat Mahomes threw for 151 yards today.
That's it.
Pat Mahomes threw for 151 yards today, averaged 6 yards per attempt, which is extraordinarily low by NFL standards, and averaged, doing my math here real quick, Mike, 8.4 yards per completion. And honestly, take out the 44-yarder, and it was 17 for 107 otherwise.
Correct.
And I think that tells you that the Von Bell Geno Stone thing, because the touchdown pass to Rice, Von Bell was running the hash, but he was responsible for a player. I think Travis Kelce kind of held him on that hash. And so he couldn't get over to help. Maybe that secondary responsibility was for him to help, but that ball was thrown so far towards the sideline, he was never going to get there. But Mike, take that away, and you can't do it, but just take that away for a second. The next longest completion was 16 yards. I think the longest completion last week for New England was 17 yards. They gave up an explosive. I get that. And you hope to not give up any, but they're not giving up hardly anything in that department. I think it's a huge step forward.
I think the biggest issue now the Bengals face between now and 8 days when they play Washington, the mental, but I think beyond that, they've got to find defensive tackles, Skinny.
Yeah. Oh, boy. I mean, at the end of that game, no Sheldon Rankins, no B.J. Hill. You're already down McKinley Jackson. You're down Chris Jenkins. That was supposed to be the four-man rotation. Well, that was supposed to be the four-man rotation. I mean, if in a perfect world, this is no knock, Zach Carter would not be up on game day. Jay Tufele would not be up on game day. And they're the ones that they kind of mixed and matched because they put Hubbard inside some just because they were desperate. I mean, you're down to your fifth and sixth tackles, for goodness sakes. And that's a tough place to be. You would hope that, there was some hope that Chris was going to be able to play this week. Last week when he had the surgery, I don't think anybody really believed that was feasible in a week to come back from thumb surgery. But, maybe with it being a Monday game and an extra day, you're talking another 8 days of healing process that he can go. But that's just one guy. McKinley Jackson's not coming back for that game because he's still on injured reserve. And both B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins are dealing with hamstrings. And, we see T. Higgins, it's now 2 weeks, and we're not guaranteed he plays against Washington because of the hamstring. And every hamstring injury is different, right? I mean, they're not in a vacuum, but both dealing with hamstrings. And so, and I don't know where you find, I mean, I guess off the practice squad, but you're in a real tough spot, especially against the team that Washington ran the ball really well today against the New York Giants.
Well, that's it. That sets me up for my final point, Skinny, and we'll wrap it up with this. Bengals play like they did in this game against Kansas City, against Washington and Carolina. They should be 2-2. They should be able to take care of business, get back to break even, and then we go from there.
They play like they played today and get a few more healthy bodies back. And I know in this league that's a big if because it could go the exact opposite way. But if they get bodies back that should be getting back if they play the way they did today, they beat Baltimore too, Mike. And then you're 3-2, and you would have given Baltimore a third loss. You still got 2 more cracks at Pittsburgh. You still got 2 more cracks at Cleveland. As much as this stinks, again, 3-2 after Baltimore would not be. That's not asking for the moon, right? And I think if that was the case, and they play the way they did today, leading up to that, I think you'd feel good about the final 12 games.
And you get T. Higgins back. You absolutely, positively have to get T back for this offense to be what it needs to be.
And then for that Baltimore game, Mike, unless there's setbacks, you get Miles Murphy back, maybe McKinley Jackson back. Probably, again, Chris Jenkins' thumb is going to be even further healed by that point. So, yeah, you even get some other parts back that I think would be big. So, yeah. I mean, today was one of those ones where you had a chance to right the wrong from what you did last week, right? Where I think all of us truly believe, hey, 1-1 coming out of Kansas City, you're fine. Well, you had a golden opportunity to still be 1-1 coming out of Kansas City. That's why I asked the question about the gut punch, because that's what it felt like. Like, man, you're on the doorstep of righting your wrong from last week and doing it in a manner of playing pretty well, and you missed the opportunity.
What's up on Local 12 post game?
Well, we got both the Zach Taylor press conference, the Joe Burrow press conference. I wrote a story with the Pool Report on the Jamar Chase situation, some reaction from teammates and head coach Zach Taylor. I'll have a game and analysis from this game as well in a column format. I think we got a couple other stories up. One's an AP story, but yeah, a lot of stuff from today as well. And we'll have this podcast up, obviously.
Yes, and we'll have this podcast up on CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. You can also obviously consume it on the Jungle Roar podcast on YouTube.com, YouTube.com/@Jungle Roar Pod. Be sure to follow Skinny on the X at Local 12 Skinny. Follow me at Trags, TRAGS. That'll be a wrap for this post game. The Skinny Local 12 Jungle Roar Bengals post-game wrap from Kansas City. The Chiefs win it on a last-second field goal by a score of 26-25. For Richard Skinner, I'm Mike Petraglia, Trags. Thanks for watching.